Hi guys, it is Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing, and I am here to do my last January weekly wrap up of 2016. I had a really great reading week this week. I managed to read 5 books and I'm really happy about it, and I can't wait to tell you all the books I read. I will leave all my written reviews of the books that I read this week down below as well if you want to check them out. So the first book that I read this week was After You by JoJo Moyes. If anyone watched my weekly wrap up last week, you know I read Me Before You by JoJo Moyes, and this is the sequel to that book. So this just follows on with the characters from Me Before You, and obviously I can't really tell you too much about this one because it is a sequel and I don't want to ruin the first book for you, but all I can say is that going into this I was thinking that it would be really hard for JoJo Moyes to write another book about the characters from Me Before You that gave me the same effect that those characters gave me in the first book, because I loved them so much, and I just really wondered if she could do it again, if the magic would still be there, and I can say that yes, it was. I loved going back to Lou, who's the main character in Me Before You, to see what she was doing, with her life. Lou is the type of character that you can really identify with. She's a little bit, she doesn't always do things that she's supposed to do. She kind of is a procrastinator a little bit, and I think a lot of people can really identify with that and really relate to her. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars just because there was one particular storyline about it with a character called Lily in it, and it's just the type of storyline that I never like when they do it in books or TV shows or movies. I just don't like it. It's just one of those personal things with me. It's just not a storyline that I like, so I was a bit like ugh when it came into this one, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who really liked that storyline. It just wasn't one for me, and Lily did grow on me. I did like her in the end, but she really frustrated me for a lot of the book, and there were a love interest in this book, and I found it really hard in my head before I went into this book to see if I would like the love interest for certain reasons, and I did. I completely fell in love with him. I really loved that story. So yeah, I'd love JoJo Moyes to write another book. I'm not sure if there would be. It's kind of open where there could be another book, and I would read it, but yeah, for this was a really nice sequel. It just brought me back to that world, to Lou's world, to JoJo Moyes' writing, which is always beautiful, and 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. The next book I read was When He Fell by Kate Hewitt. This is a book I got from NetGalley, so thank you to them and the publishers for that. This is a book about 2 boys who have an accident in a playground during recess in their school, and one boy ends up in a really bad situation in hospital where it's kind of a life or death situation, and the parents are left to try and figure out what actually happened between the 2 boys that caused this accident. And it's just going on with this, with one child in hospital, one child not talking, a single mum having to deal with her child in hospital, and then 2 parents who are trying to deal with why their son isn't talking to them, and trying to figure out stuff about their marriage at the same time. So it was good. It wasn't great. I gave it 3.25 stars just because it was really frustrating for me to read, because I mean, you have a child who's in a coma who most likely has brain damage, and then you have this other child who just won't really talk about what happened, and the parents are just like completely okay with just letting him for several months not talking to them about what actually happened when this child is lying with brain damage. And it's like, would you not literally shake your child to tell the truth when there is another child in that was almost died, basically. There was a point at the end of this book, a very heart-wrenching moment that I think brought to light something that is quite serious in today's society. Obviously I can't say what it is because it is a spoiler, but I do like that this was brought up, and there were some statistics around it that was brought up as well, and it is something, a little bit of an eye-opener as well. So overall 3.25 stars. Not a great read, but it was pretty interesting read. And then I read my TBR jar pick of January, and that was Letters to Zell by Camille Griep. This is a kind of book that focuses around the Disney princesses that we all know and love, and they live in a place called Grimland. And it is about Sleeping Beauty, who's called Cece, Snow White, who's called Bianca, and Sleeping Beauty, who is called Aurora. And they're all writing letters to Rapunzel, who they refer to as Zell. And Rapunzel has up and left Grimland, and she has gone to Oz with her husband and her children to run a unicorn sanctuary. And all the other princesses are left really angry that Rapunzel went and left without telling them, and they start writing letters to her to say, you know, what were you doing, how are we going to do anything, and then they start writing to her about just the stuff that's happening in their lives and the problems they're dealing with. And Rapunzel leaving kind of sparks this thing in all the other princesses where they're like, well, maybe we don't have to stay around here, maybe we can go off and do other things with our lives. A real different side to the princesses that we know from Disneyland. There is a part where they actually do go to Disneyland and see their Disney counterparts, and it's absolutely hilarious. I did for the most part enjoy this book. I gave it a 3.75 stars. I just didn't quite enjoy it enough for 4 stars, but I didn't enjoy it like I enjoyed it too much for 3.5 stars, if that makes sense. But it is really good. I think if people liked Beauty Queens by Libba Bray, they might like this book. It has that real dramatic feel to it, and these women who are kind of discovering themselves in this weird situation, and they're kind of realizing that they won't take no for answers and they won't let people walk all over them. It's not quite as satirical as Beauty Queens, but it does have the same kind of just feelings, the same kind of tone to it, I think. But overall, it was a pretty great read, and 3.75 stars. The next read was one of my most anticipated reads of 2016, and this is Where It Ends by Marieke and Nijkamp. This is a book that I'm sure a lot of people have been hearing a little bit about since it was published in January, and it is about a school shooting, and it's about a school shooting being told from different perspectives of different characters, and it was a very interesting read. I started reading this at 11 o'clock on Wednesday night because I'd finished my book on the way home, and I decided that I was going to sit down and read this book before I went to bed, read a little bit of it maybe before, like for half an hour, and then I'd go to sleep. And it then ended up being like 1 in the morning. I was 70% through the book, and I actually physically had to throw the book away from me, or throw my Kindle away from me, to make myself go to sleep, because obviously I had work very early the next morning, and I wasn't going to get any sleep if I kept reading this book. I was absolutely hooked to it. I thought it was really, really good. There has been a few bad reviews, or mediocre reviews of this book, but I genuinely really enjoyed it. As soon as I heard about this book, I really wanted to read it. This kind of situation really fascinates me. I have worked in similar situations. Obviously, I work in a newsroom, so I have been in a newsroom when different things have happened. Charlie Hebdo, Paris attacks, the school shootings, some of the school shootings or shootings that happened last year. I've been in newsrooms when these things have been happening. So I have seen the stuff coming out of this, the pictures, the images, the eyewitness accounts, and I just thought it would be really interesting to actually read a book from this kind of particular situation. It just fascinates me. So I really enjoyed it. I did connect with some of the characters because there is different character point of views. It is kind of hard to connect to all of them straight away, but they do grow on you, particularly some of them. Thomas grew on me, as well as I really liked Thomas, Farseed, Matt and Asha. Matt and Asha and Farseed, none of them have point of views. You hear them through other character point of views, but I really liked all of them. Some of the other ones, Autumn and Sylvia, I didn't really care for, even though they were kind of the main characters of the book, but I felt they have kind of a romantic relationship, and I think it kind of tried to, the romantic relationship tried to overtake the actual storyline of the shooting, which kind of annoyed me a little bit. Obviously, if you don't like reading, or if you get unsettled by reading graphic violence, this book isn't for you, as it is a school shooting. The shootings are described, blood, the sounds, all that kind of stuff. The fear is there. It is a very tense book. I was on the edge of my seat trying to reading it, wanting to know what happened, wanting to know if my favourite characters were going to survive. It was a very tense read. But I did really enjoy it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I knocked off 0.5 stars as I think the villain or the shooter was too black and white in this book. I don't think in real life these shooters are always quite black and white. I don't think they always have a background of kind of doing terrible things. Didn't quite agree with the shooter's history. I just thought it was just too black and white. I just think these kind of situations are a lot more grey from what I've seen. Very, very, different shades of grey. So that's the only problem I had with it, but overall I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4.5 stars. And then the last book I managed to read this week is The Storied Life of AJ Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a book that was on a lot of people's top books 2015, so I really wanted to pick it up. It's quite a short book, it's only about 250 pages, yeah, but not even 250 pages, so I went through it quite quickly. All I can tell you about this book is it's about a man who owns a bookstore. He's in a little bit of a rut in his life, and then something happens, something is left in his bookshop that ends up changing his life, and that is all I'm going to tell you, because I don't think you actually really need to know what this book is about. All you need to know is about it's a book about a man who runs a bookstore, and that's really all you need to know. Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. It's kind of one of those books that grows on you. Everything about it is really subtle. You don't really like even get that you're really getting invested in the story until about halfway through, and I'm like, wow, like I actually really enjoy this. Everything about it, there's no huge like action scenes in it or whatever. It's kind of just going through the motions of telling the story really subtly, laying all these little things. Like the romance in it isn't really big, it kind of just happens, you know, all these things are just step. It's like, you know, there's no huge fuss made about anything, but it's just told in such a really lovely way. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 stars just because I don't think I loved it as much as other people did. I really enjoyed it. I just don't think it would be one of my favourites, but I have a feeling this could be one of those books that I keep thinking about over the next few months, and then I'll be like, wow, no, I really did love this book. This is a 5-star read. I think that could happen, but for the moment it's going to be a 4.5 stars. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And seeing as it is the last week of January, I'm going to pull out my February TBR jar. I actually remembered this time to do it before February starts. So let's see what I am going to be reading this month. Enchantress. And I'm not sure I don't have it written down who the author is, but this is on my Kindle. And I think it is a fantasy book that I've been really wanting to read. So I'm really happy with that. And I'll see you guys again next week. So bye.